Short of blatantly telling him to get lost, what else could I do? Would I have to be rude? Because instead of realizing that I was a lost cause, he laughed. He laughed, and it did funny things to my insides. I wanted to laugh with him, and crawl into his lap and beg him to be mine. "And you are?" he prompted. Still not interested. It was becoming a bigger lie as time passed. If some other guy had pursued me this way, I would have thought it was creepy and called for security to have him escorted off the mountain. Instead, I secretly hoped he would keep talking to me. I thought he'd finally gotten the message as an entire minute of silence passed between us before he reached over to look at my book's spine to see the title. I gulped in response. His hands were large and masculine, and I wondered how his long fingers would feel interlaced with mine. I shook my head and let out a shaky breath. I had gone seriously crazy, like jumping on Oprah's couch crazy. "Macbeth. I would have guessed Romeo and Juliet." I couldn't help myself. I had to look at him. Two 15-year-olds who kill themselves in the name of love after only knowing each other for 3 days? No thanks. That smile. He was killing me. "You don't find it romantic?" I don't find anything romantic about suicide. "You don't think love at first sight is romantic?" he persisted. I'd never believed such a thing possible before this moment, but now I was sort of getting where Romeo had been coming from. Nico was literally the most handsome man I'd ever met in real life. If anyone could convince me to believe in love at first sight, he was the guy. "Nope," I finally managed. He smiled like he didn't believe me. "Nico, andiamo!" Nico looked over his shoulder at a group of guys who were waving and calling out to him. He shouted something back to them, and they headed out the door, hooting and hollering as they went. He stood up. He was taller than I'd first thought. Yummy tall. Way taller than me tall. And that wasn't easy to find. "How long will you be in Monterra?" It was such a personal question, my gut reaction was to tell him to mind his own business. But to my surprise, I found myself saying, "For the next couple of weeks." "May I see your phone?" I didn't actually own a cell phone. I could barely afford food. "No phone, and I'm not phone adjacent." Nico smiled again, and I wanted to melt into my chair. He reached inside his coat, pulled out a small white business card, and handed it to me. "If you ever do find yourself adjacent to a phone while you're here, please call. I would love to take you to dinner before you leave." When I reached out, he took my hand and turned it over, leaning down to kiss my knuckles. A lightning arc exploded inside my hand and zoomed around my entire body, all the way down to my toenails. I might have gasped, but I decided to pretend that I would never do something so lame. He straightened back up to put the card in my shaking hand, closing my fingers around it. "I look forward to your call," he said as he walked backward toward the exit. "Ciao, Bella." He left, and it took my eyes a second to adjust, like I'd been staring at the sun and now had third-degree burns on my retinas. Who did that? Who just kissed people's hands like that? This wasn't the 15th century. So weird. And exciting, but weird. The business card was white and thick, obviously expensive. There was only a series of numbers, presumably his telephone number. I flipped the card over. Blank. Who had a card without a name on it? Just their phone number. I'd tell you who. A guy who kissed your hand. I closed my book and put it on the coffee table in front of me. I looked at the card again, turning it over a couple of times as I considered my decision. I didn't need this while I was here, and I couldn't let Lemon see it or she'd hog-tie me and force me to call him. I was here to relax, forget about my school troubles, and enjoy time with my best friend. Boys were not part of the equation. A massive fire burned in the fireplace across the room. Decision made. I walked over, and before I could change my mind, threw the card into the fire, and informed myself that I absolutely, totally, and completely did not regret it. Lemon's 5 more minutes turned out to be more than an hour. She came down all smiles and sorries in her bright pink snowsuit. "Come on, cat darling, let's go," she said in her sweet southern